If you are still playing video games as an adult, you are still a loser, is what a lot of Western society is telling us because it's still seen as a hobby for children and nerds who live in their mother's basement, or both. Gaming has always had that negative stigma in our society since its inception in the 1960s, and unfortunately almost 60 years later, that still hasn't really changed all that much.
If you thought you had to be, what, a brainiac or an athlete to get a scholarship at any college, well, it turns out you can just be a lazy old video gamer. Be a lazy old video gamer.
Gamers, unfortunately, are still those socially awkward losers who don't have anything going on for them in their lives. At least that's how society views them. For the longest time, gaming has never been respected as a hobby or a profession by quote-unquote normal people. It was always just that one pastime that kids partook in when they wanted to entertain themselves instead of going outside to play with the other kids. I remember myself as a child when my parents were always telling me that the games were rotting my brain and I needed to stop playing them and doing something productive with my life. Well, joke's on them because I still prefer to play video games instead of doing productive stuff 15 years later. That's not really something to brag about. All those kids who grew up on video games have now become hopefully fully functioning adults in society who are probably still playing video games to this very day, albeit not as much as they used to. But even despite being completely normal people that have hobbies just like any average person does, gaming seems to be accepted the least out of all of them. To be fair though, progress has been made in normalizing gaming as a hobby around the world, but unfortunately not everyone still feels that way about it. So why is it that after all this time, gaming still isn't respected by anybody? The bad apples. Now of course every community in existence is going to have a small minority of bad apples that make the rest of the community look bad, and gamers are no different. One of the reasons why there's such a negative perception of us is because there are people out there who embody the exact stereotype of a gamer. Single, unemployed, socially awkward, broke, and still living in their mother's basement playing video games for 10 hours a day. That is the quintessential checklist of what people think the average gamer is like, because to be frank, there are a lot of people that fit a bunch of these criteria in real life. Although in reality, it may be a small minority of the population of gamers that are actually like this, but they're more than common enough to give a bad impression to a normal person. Imagine this, you're a completely average dude that casually enjoys video games as a hobby from time to time, and one day you see that there's a gaming event being held in your local area, let's say for Super Smash Bros, which you decide that you want to attend. You mark the date on your calendar and go about your day like any normal person. On the day of the event, you arrive there for the first time ever, and to your dismay and disgust, your nose is immediately met with the most rancid, putrid smell that you've ever smelt in your life. And you're out here completely bewildered at what just assaulted your olfactory senses. Could it be some food that was left out a bit too long? Or perhaps it was some roadkill that had died right before the event had started? No, that smell that just molested your nose was in fact the body odor of the very elusive gamer found in the wild. Mid-30s, still single, slightly overweight, and hasn't bathed in over 3 weeks. And it would have been fine if it was just a one-off appearance, but it wasn't because they were everywhere. It almost felt like the whole convention was filled with them. Disgusted at what you had just discovered, you go home and cross the thought of ever returning to another one of these gaming events ever again because the first one was just that traumatizing. Now obviously this is just a hypothetical scenario that definitely never happened before, but I'm sure something similar to this has happened to a normal person. And it's more than enough to give them a negative perception of what gamers are like in real life. Luckily though, in reality, only a very small minority of gamers are actually like this, and the majority of them are normal everyday people who just have a nerdy hobby that they like to partake in from time to time. But most people won't really remember that because it's not interesting to them. Mainstream media. Now it doesn't help that the bad apples make gamers as a whole look worse, but it's also the fact that the mainstream media exacerbates the negative perception of being a gamer. I think it's fair to say that most of the people watching outlets like CNN or Fox News aren't really gamers or have a general interest in gaming. Because of that, they're more likely to believe whatever nonsense story these news outlets spew out. And unfortunately, many of them don't hold a very high opinion on gaming as a hobby. In fact, they seem to actually despise video games as a whole, believing that they're a waste of time or that they rot your brain or whatever other asinine reason they can come up with.
amazing that in your therapy sessions, families are coming in and saying, get my young kids off of this? This is part of your sessions.
Yes, it is. And it's a parental challenge, as there are many parental challenges. But this has really invaded the family systems because it is so addictive. It is incredibly addictive. It has been likened to something like heroin. And even Prince Harry in Britain said, I don't know why anyone would have Fortnite in their home because it is like giving a child heroin.
Even kids aren't safe from the ridicule. They'll still get flagged for playing video games even though kids are the demographic that are expected to be playing them.
As a mother, I would just say step away from the screen, go outside, get some fresh air. Beating Tetris is not a life goal.
Video games have always been heavily disliked by mainstream media for decades now, and they would pretty much spin any story that they can in order to frame them in a negative light. At first, it was that they're demonic because of games like Diablo or Doom scaring the evangelicals into thinking that the devil is actually in them trying to brainwash the kids. Then it was that violent video games like GTA and Call of Duty were somehow influencing the kids to become more violent, even though that myth's been debunked many times now.
It seems like these things have gotten so much worse since video games became so realistic and so violent.
And now it's that gamers need to go outside and touch grass because playing games will get you nowhere in life.
YouTube launched a new video network yesterday where you can watch other people play video games. For real, the whole network. It's called the We Should All Be Very Ashamed of Ourselves for Failing as Parents channel.
Either way, video games have always been looked down upon by the boomers at the mainstream news outlets who barely even know how to navigate their emails. Like, no, Edna, the games aren't making the kids violent. Go back to bingo night at the retirement home, why don't you? Anyways, alongside the mainstream media, there's also the rise in social media usage, which serves to further push negative stereotypes because it can broadcast the small minority of bad apples for the entire world to view for their own entertainment.
So confirmed, Santa's #1 helper is a squirrel.
I would really prefer if you would be quiet. But yes, you are correct.
$10 from Dracu. The Tom B2 was my favorite childhood game, so I just had to donate for the first time. Thank you so much for the run and good luck.
I'm sure many of you have seen those gamer cringe videos floating around the internet of fully grown men throwing temper tantrums over a simple video game. And while I do somewhat understand their frustrations, it is a bit over the top. Like, I get it, I've also had times where I wanted to break something or throw my PC out the window, but sometimes these people go a little too far. But throwing tantrums isn't all that gamers are known for. They're also known for having the most disgusting living situations humanly possible. And sure, this does happen to a lot of non-gamers as well, but for some reason it's the gamers that have embodied this image because social media have made them go viral.
Hello everyone. Heard a lot of people saying that I exaggerate things, I make things more than what they are. And that's true. But not in terms of my room. A lot of people think that it's actually not as bad as it is. And I'm probably gonna clean it today, but I don't want to lose the memory.
Yeah, I know some of it might be fake or played up for the video for engagement, but I'm willing to bet that 95% of it isn't fake at all, and this is just how they genuinely are behind closed doors. Videos like these make their rounds on the internet for everyone to see, and you know what normal people are thinking? Wow, look at how embarrassing those gamers are. I'm sure glad that I'm nothing like them, while they sit there and laugh at us from the comfort of their own homes. And I wouldn't blame them. Some of these living conditions that these guys put themselves in are literal biohazards that look like something out of Resident Evil. Although it is incredibly nasty, thankfully only a very small minority of gamers actually live like this, and they don't represent the massive majority of normal gamers out there. But unfortunately, what's on the internet stays on it, and videos like these will always live forever within the online cyberspace till the end of time. So with all this being said, what can we as gamers do to push back against these negative stereotypes that have been built up for years and years now? I think it's time that we gamers finally stand up to the society that's been oppressing us for so long. For decades now, we have been massively contributing to our communities for the greater good, but nobody seems to want to acknowledge that because doing so would mean acknowledging that gamers are the most repressed group of individuals out there, and they'll never do that because they don't want to see us ever succeed. I think it's time that we gamers finally stand up to the institutions that keep us down. It's time to prove that we can actually make a difference and that we are deserving of respect. Gamers, we need to finally rise up and take back our rightful place in society. No more being told that we're wasting our time. No more being told that playing games will get us nowhere. And no more being called losers for having passion in our hobby. Or we can just play games and chill out like normal people do. That's cool too. But that's just me. What do you think? Do you agree or disagree? Let me know down below and make sure to like, comment, subscribe for more content in the future. See ya.